All right, and we are back. Hey everyone. We've been on a bit of a hiatus for the last week or so, but back. Probably
Maximum warp.
Maximum warp, thank you, No Jewel. Yeah, it's probably gonna take a while for people to, funnel back in here after a week off. I think it's gonna be pretty chill. We're gonna start with kind of a short stream today, maybe like a couple hours. Kind of ease back into it. I've been working on a bit of dev stuff, but not as much as I probably should have. How's it going, No Jewel? How's your stuff going? But we're back. We're excited. 4.4 is out. We upgraded to 4.4. Kind of want to start by maybe just going over this a little bit. Pretty cool. Pretty cool that we got the 4.4 release out. We're already migrated and stuff. Where do they put the changelog for this thing? So we got jolt physics. Pretty good. I tried jolt for mini delivery for my like 3D driving game. It was good for my particular use of like the vehicle body 3D. I didn't notice huge difference, but I'm really hoping this will be a nice change for people doing physics. Window management magic. I was trying this out yesterday. The embedded game window thing. I think this is like secretly, maybe not secretly. I think this is like, I get why they put Jolt first, but like, I think this is like the GOAT of 4.4. Like, it makes sense why Godot runs the game as a separate process, because this is really great. This is like a huge problem with Unity, where like the game crashes and the engine crashes and then your computer crashes. Like, Godot never has that issue in my experience. Pretty cool. But now we have the embedded game window thing working, which is pretty awesome. Like in my project. It's a subtle difference, but it's like, wait for Godot. So now when I hit like play, now it's playing in the editor, in the game editor window. So now if I like go to the remote tree, I can click around, I can grab the game board, I can see the inspector thing, I see the output, the debugger output window. I can even like move things, I think. I don't know, it's a little weird because of how our tools work, but super cool. Like here it's showing the anchor point of the camera as we move around. There's the anchor point of the game board. We can go through here. It's really fancy. It's a little, it's not super helpful for me yet, but I see this as being like a huge, like here I'm getting printouts of the prior coordinates for the mouse cursor. I love that. Like it's gonna be so much easier to debug things and to keep an eye on all this stuff when running the game in the editor window. Probably should adjust this a little bit. Get a little more game window here, maybe. Oh no, that's the min. Yeah, well, I'll reposition the game window a little bit. But I love this. I absolutely love this change. Very excited. Very excited about the embedded game window in the editor. No Jewel. Yeah, the window was the first and mainly the only big negative thing you noticed when switching to Godot from Unity. You can also make export tool buttons now. Ooh, okay. But yeah, this is definitely the best part of this update for me. VR stuff. Uber shaders. I'm going to be super honest in that I don't understand what an Uber shader is. But it looks like it prevents stuttering, which everyone's experienced stuttering from like loading shaders and stuff. So That just seems good. 3D physics interpolation is quite nice. Their example seems to be broken. Oh no, here we go. Yeah, so similar, more stutter issues with physics interpolation. That's really great. Tone mapping. Interesting. Type dictionaries. This is everyone's like low-key favorite thing. I think before I really appreciated the game windows thing, I was like, oh yeah, type dictionaries. But I'm very excited. No, Joel, you were about to say that. Hi, Bart Lane. Welcome in. We're back from our little hiatus. We're kind of just looking through. There was a big update to our game engine, and we're kind of just reading through some of the changes right now. Our favorite changes are the embedded game window and the type dictionaries so far. But we're kind of just looking through here. Some optimizations. Ooh, adding domains outside of 0 to 1 for the curves. That's kind of cool. Kind of like laying out those curve structures by hand sometimes. And being able to go outside of the normalized range sounds pretty cool. Oh, there's a new CSG implementation. I'm actually kind of down to try that. I haven't done really a lot of CSG recently, but I do like it. Ooh, some temporary file and directory utility stuff. This seems kind of good. Yeah, tool developers in particular should have a look at this new feature. Yeah, that seems quite cool. If I eventually move to having some of my tools being standalone plugins, I feel like I'm going to be kind of interested in that. Scene tree overhaul. Interesting. I want to read more about the scene tree stuff later, probably. Here's the contentious UID. Evaldo Brati, the debug evaluator for you is definitely the best feature in this version. Nice. Yeah, I'm excited to be able to monitor more stuff with the debugger now that I can have it in. Now that I can be watching the debugger with the embedded game window. But yeah, that having the debug evaluator as well is like, that's such a nice bonus. Anyway, how's it going? Welcome into the stream. Yeah, the unique identifier support I think is fine. I'm pleased with this. Rather than having to, as an alternative to like making things unique. I think it's a nice way to be able to reference resources without needing to know path names. I think that's cool. Obviously, it does add a lot of meta files, but who cares? 3D object snapping. Ooh. It can snap to other surfaces. Oh, okay. This looks pretty awesome. That was a huge pain when I was laying out like little environmental details. My last 3D game was being like, is this object actually sitting on top of this other object, or is it like floating and I can't tell because of the camera perspective? So this is nice. This is nice. Oh my gosh. Red alert. We got a raid. We got Sorcery Story coming in with their sorcelators. Soul Game Studio, here we go. Raid alert. That's it. That's right, Sorcery Story. How's it going? How was the stream? Yeah, ship it. No Jewel. How's it going? How was everything? We're back. We took about a week off streaming. This is actually our first stream back in a little over a week. So this is awesome. Nice to see everyone. Yeah, we're doing okay now. We need a little bit of a break. Base stream on kick. Welcome in. Hey, everybody. I'm Digital Iliad. We're working on like an isometric 3D FTL-like. So like FTL faster than light, but we're doing kind of a stacked isometric 3D thing. Kind of the thing we're working on. We work a bit in good GD script, and also our simulation layer works in C#. So kind of got a little bit of both. We got a lot going on. It's all in Godot. We were actually just looking at the 4.4 release. What's everyone's favorite thing in the 4.4? Sorcery, things are going good for you. You're getting people to move and animate while on settlements and stuff. It's not working 100%, but it's getting there. Nice. Nice. That'll just be subject to the 80-20 rule, right? Like you'll get the first 80% of it super quickly, and then the last 20% of it is going to take forever to figure out. So yeah, we've been looking through what's everyone's favorite additions. I know people are into Jolt. For me, it's this embedded game window thing. The embedded game window to me is like such a huge level up in terms of workflow, like being able to go here and just run the project and then just be running the project in the game window. I know if you have multiple monitors, you like don't care as much, but I can go to the remote tree. I can click on this. I can bring this up in the inspector. And so I can keep an eye on this in the inspector as I'm like doing stuff in the game, as I'm like drawing stuff. This feels huge. Like, I love this. Like, it's going to make it so much easier to just monitor stuff with simple debug statements, or like putting fields, exposing fields in the editor that you can then like reference. Like, this feels so great. Be able to do all this stuff like this. So cool. Very excited. We've been kind of just reading through and seeing what the rest of the stuff is. Embedded player is a big one for sure. Oh, the triple door. Yeah, no, Jewel, we got the triple door in there. Got the triple door in the system. Yeah, we were very excited about the embedded game window. We were kind of scrolling down. Stuff like physics interpolation is really nice. Seems like there's some cool rendering stuff that I'm not super aware of. Stuff with shaders, stuff with tone mapping. Obviously, type dictionaries for the GD script crowd is like, people love that. Curves with domains outside of 0 to 1 is kind of cool. Bunch of new stuff. I want to try CSG and Godot. I haven't really done much. Scene tree overhaul. We were talking about this, the very contentious UID support. I'm all for. I hate having to keep track of path names because I'm always changing path names. It's going to be really nice to just switch to UIDs. And then every time I reorganize my entire project, I don't break all my references. 3D object snapping, super cool. I haven't seen most of the rest of this. The debug expression evaluator, someone was telling us that they're all about this, and I think this is going to be great. Camera 3D preview. GD script tooltips, love that. Yeah, there's lots of good stuff in here. Grocery store, you're very excited about the old school render tech. Can't wait to get that going one of these days. Yeah. There's just, I feel like there's so many options for presentations, for styles of presentations and rendering styles you can do. Like, we're kind of all in on tile maps in this game, but I'm just tempted. I see all these different things I could be doing, and I'm tempted to try it on like a game jam or something. But yeah, there's so much in here. I'm tempted to, if anyone has anything else they want to call out, they think is incredible. The rest of this is more particular to like rendering backends and platform specific stuff. Ooh, some scripting stuff. Having .NET 8 be the floor is pretty great. We're already on .NET 8. But you love to see that get higher and higher and higher. .NET support for Android, that's pretty huge. I love the way they present these before and after. Ooh, animation markers. This sounds awesome. So you can put these little pins in the animation. So if you like cancel out of an animation or you want to rush to a certain part of an animation, you can jump to it or loop it without replaying the whole thing. I love that. That sounds really great. We haven't gotten too far into setting up animations, but I feel like that's going to be really good. Especially if we need to like rush to a different animation state or loop or cancel or something. Seems great. That's a little Godot buddy. Yeah, this one, this little Godot buddy. Yeah, I love that. It's like a little more, even more of a bot, Godot bot. No, Joel. Okay, Godot not always opening in full screen loading for some seconds on your ultra wide screen anymore is nice. Yeah, that sounds nice. Yeah, I'm gonna have to dive more into this. Ooh, 2D batching. Okay, so we're getting batch draw calls in forward plus and mobile rendering. I love that. Oh, the rendering driver fallback. This is maybe actually a bit of an issue. This is something that people should check. They've added a default fallback to OpenGL, which might break your game if you're using forward plus or mobile only stuff. So like, let's actually go look for that. Rendering device fallback. So fallback to OpenGL 3. So if Vulkan is not available or D3, D12 is not available, it will fall back to OpenGL 3 by default. This could be a problem for some projects. Like if you've got post-processing or something. So something to keep an eye on there for sure. 2D shader instance uniforms. Oh, yeah. I was reading about this. This is great. You can allow a different uniform value to each instance of an item. Yes, this is huge for some per instance shading, shader stuff. We're going to be doing, I feel like, a lot of this at a certain point. That's so great. Yeah, no, you don't need a different shader for every different uniform you're trying to provide. This feels huge. Mission shapes for 3D particle systems. Ooh, I love their particle systems so far. Special thanks. Look at all these people. Look at all these contributors. This is incredible. Source 3 story, retro vibes. Yes, that's what we want. That's what we're. I feel like we're both very much going for a kind of 2D retro vibe. I think that's great. We've been actually working on a bunch of different palettes. We've been trying some different color palettes. That's kind of what I did during my break. So we tried a bunch of different color palettes. This is like the original piece that like you see here. This is like post-processing and stuff added to it. But I briefly was exploring some different color palettes to try. So we took like this one. We tried Zenith 241. We ended up with like a bit of a different look here. Kind of flipped which parts were dark and which parts were light. We made the wall a lot darker. This is a different palette, whereas like this is a custom palette I made. And I was trying to shop around some different palettes. Here's a wild one. Sorcery Story, you need to get to art research one of these days. I know. I just felt like my palette was really limited at first. It was basically just these four ramps, not counting gray. It was it's 4 colors of 9-step ramps. This is like my palette, and I have a high sat version of it, and I have a low sat version of it. So we have the same, basically the same hues, but a low sat variation so that we can do stuff with like backgrounds. So like most of the background here is using the low saturation version, and the foreground elements are using more of the high sat versions. So we can control, so we can try to foreground stuff using both saturation and value. So we're trying to do some stuff like that. But for funsies, I wanted to see what I could get from other people's palettes. I tried this one, AAP Radiant Plus, and I went way overboard. This is 2 Radiant and 2 Plus. I tried Hot Highlights, Cold Shadows. This one went weird. I didn't have a lot of good greens that I liked with this one, so I ended up going with this very purple orangey thing. I think it's kind of horrible. But it feels like you can tell the characters apart because they have this red-blue thing going on, and everything else is this kind of purple-orange. But I ended up just expanding my color palette to 4 new colors. So we took our original palette here. Let me go back to the high sat one so it's easier to see. And I kind of decided the only thing that I could do after trying out all these different other palettes, I kind of decided the thing to do was to just expand my palette. So like this is the expanded version of my palette, and this was like the original. So I just took my palette and I just added 4 more ramps. And I think this is the way I'm gonna approach this. Does look interesting though. They're little pink control stations. Yeah, so I think that's the approach I'm gonna make, and I think that is a good approach with A Sprite. Is you kind of, let me grab the file here. So like, where's the high sat expert? So what I'm doing basically, here's like the 4 original ramps, and then I added 4 new ramps. I don't know if I love this orangey kind of salmony kind of thing, but I'm just gonna keep adding them. And if you use the indexed color mode, you can basically continue to add ramps to your palette. So we'll just be able to continue adding more ramps down here and just keep going as far as we want. And it won't break existing art. If I end up modifying one of my existing colors, like I say, like, I don't exactly love this particular shade of purple or something, I want to tweak it. You can tweak it. And because the color mode you're using for your art is indexed, when you reload that piece, it will update to the current color. So I think that's a really great way. If you're making your own custom palette, you kind of just do it like this. Like at first I was going to rearrange these so that it was like within like the order of the color spectrum. And then I realized you don't want to reorder it because you don't want to break your existing references. So like I have some pieces of art that only use these colors. And then I have some pieces of art that also use these colors. And if you're using an indexed color mode, you don't want to break any of these references. So you just kind of keep expanding and keep expanding. And you feel like you're missing a ramp. You're like, oh, I want this particular color from here to here. Like, I think I want something that's a little more of a warmer orange ramp. This one starts a little too cool for me. Then I can just add it here. And then any new pieces can use it without breaking the old pieces. And I feel like this is a good approach going forward to like retain backwards compatibility while still being able to like recolor things. Yeah, I think we're pretty happy with it. I also think we're pretty happy with where we ended up with this recolor from like a contrast standpoint. I think we did a little better job of using low values for background pieces like the floor and foregrounding things like the little people in their consoles and stuff. I think we did a little bit of a better job this time. So I think it's a work in progress. I think I'm learning, and I'm definitely not going to do the correct thing except upon many, many processes of iteration, and so I think it's important to be okay with that. Like I saw all these nice other palettes, and I think a better approach rather than trying to rip someone else's palette is just be inspired and expand your own. Dustin, pink alert. Breast cancer awareness time. It's always good to be aware of that, so thank you. Please stream on Kick. Redeemed Hydrate. Thank you. Please stream on Kick. I don't know if I will. We're streaming on Twitch and YouTube right now. But Thank you for hanging out, Raiders. Thank you for the raid sorcery. If you need to get on with your day, I feel it. So we've talked a little bit about color palette stuff. We worked a little bit. We checked out the 4.4 release list. We probably should just get back to work on some code that we need to make. We have a few more features for our tilemap editor that we need to work on. So our tilemap editor, we can build all these structures. So I can say, here's a small area, go down a step. Here's a larger area. Actually, let's make a room here. So this is all being done with tile maps. So we can make these 3D areas here. Need to add a roof here. You need to get going? No worries. Dinner calls and all that. Hope you have a great stream. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sorcery Story. I hope you have a great rest of your day. The flood fill algorithm is freaking out a little bit. Give it a second. It's trying to flood fill this enormous 3-dimensional space. We need to tighten that up. So it's flood filling. It's trying to determine where the enclosed spaces are. So yeah, here we go. We finally reached stability. So you can see the outside surfaces are all this mid-tone gray, and the interior surfaces are all this kind of almost like light gray, almost like white color. That's the flood fill system doing a compartmentalization. So it can tell that this is an interior compartment and that these surfaces are all exposed to outer space. So that's cool stuff that we got going on here. But there's some features of this that we need to improve. One is undo redo. So I can't very easily just Control Z. Look at that triple door. So we can't do like a Control Z. I want to get undo redo back in this. I want select and move. So if I change my mind about this and I'm like, oh, I want to move this surface to the other side here. I mean, I could rotate the camera and look at it this way, but right now I can't like box an area and like drag and move it. So I want some select move, and then we need save and load so that I can save this construction to disk and then reload it. Those are in my mind the last 3 major features that I want for my tilemap editor. And then it's more about adding content. I love the way the cutaway system cuts away parts of the doors as we go back. Really down with that. Then it's more about just adding content. Like we have all these sloped surfaces that we need to add. Word, what was that even called? All shape explorations. We have all these alternative shapes we need to add support for as well. Right now we can just do the cube, but we also need to be able to support sloped shapes. And we need a zoom. We need to be able to zoom out and render the smaller versions of the shapes. So half scale versus full scale. So yeah, there's quite a few features left to add to this tilemap editor. So we just need to get to it. It was fun taking a break and thinking about color palette stuff. I think that was good for me at the moment, just dealing with some stuff and not wanting to work on code. So, but we got to get back to it. Adding sloped shapes is going to be huge for this project, because right now we're just really only able to build like housing projects, like flying housing projects. And everything is very boxy and cubic, and I would like to add at least more slopes, if not ceramic curve, or if not, you know, curves and stuff like that. Spaceship Tycoon, yeah. We're heading in that direction for sure. Is there a way to like full screen this sometimes? Yeah, like this. Okay, I see, but that won't actually do anything for us. Yeah, I'm very interested and excited and about trying out more of these embedded game window features. I know it kind of reduces the amount of space that you can see, so sometimes it would probably be nice to instead do like... So how do I do that? How do I switch from embedded to floating? Do I just click this and then say... Bart Lane, are we gonna get a space ship it emoji someday? Yeah, hopefully. That would be nice. Okay, now if I hit play, now it'll be a separate window. Gotta give it a moment. Okay, I see. So now we have it full screen. Yeah, I like having it zoomed in more. I feel like it's probably easier for people to see what's going on. I've got more of this zoom going, so we'll probably switch back and forth between having it be popped out and embedded, depending on what we want. We love that triple door. I need to fix it so that it doesn't freak out when I accidentally try to make like a quadruple door. Right now it kind of just starts. Right now it just starts iterating the triple door. I need to have some kind of invalid door sprite that I can shove in when we try to make something that's invalid. And we need something that stays on the ground when you hide the door so that you can still tell there's a door there. We almost need a separate tile material for underneath doors. It needs to be different than this dark gray, though. It needs to be some kind of texture. You can tell there's a door there. Bumblebite. So what are you doing in this game? Building? This is a tool for me for the game. We're aiming for... I don't know if you're familiar with FTL Faster Than Light, but that's kind of what we're going for. We're kind of going for a spaceship simulator. So your main activities are going to be like controlling the movement of your characters, like putting them on the right stations, like weapons or shields and stuff like that, and like distributing power throughout the ship. But we're doing kind of an isometric 3D version of it, which is why we're focusing on this tool that lets us build 3D structures, so we can just build a space down here. I messed up. We gotta turn it around. So we've been focused on a lot on tools. So this is my own tool for building ships, but this tool works in the game. Like, we're just running this in the game. This isn't, I know it's embedded in the editor, but we're just running this. This is like a runtime tool. So I'm hoping eventually it'll be good for modding or like UGC. We're kind of just dog fooding our own tools right now. So this is the tool we're going to use to build the ship. And we're just working on it. And it's under the hood, it's got this kind of involved auto tiler, which is what's handling the rendering for us. Yeah, you like the endless mod for FTL? Is this a roguelike? I would say I'm calling it an FTL-like. If you want to argue about whether FTL is a roguelike or not, that's not an argument I want to have. Vlad P. How did you ran the game in the editor? Hey, Vlad. This is a feature of Godot 4.4. So get on 4.4. You've got an embedded game window option now where you can run the game embedded in the editor window such that you can actually click in to the remote scene tree and actually move stuff around, which is pretty incredible. So the way... I think the way that you get this going, I'm trying to remember how this works here. So in the editor, how did we get this? So basically you need to set this, you need to get this game tab in here. Some embedded game tab, and I don't remember what I did to get it in there. Embedded. Run. Windows placement. Okay, so in the window placement, game embed mode, you can switch this to embed game. This controls your editor. I think you can also do it on a per project basis. Also, hey, Ryson, it's good to see you. I actually don't see how to do it on a per project basis, but you can definitely do it just for anything in your editor. You can do it at on the editor level. So you turn on embed game, and then you go into the actual game tab. You click this, and you say embed game on next play. And if you want to make that floating, you can say make game workspace floating on next play, and you can turn that off to get it back into the embedded format. So you can just flip. That's what I've figured out so far. There's probably a better way to do it. Please stream on Kick. Thank you for the follow. Really appreciate that. Yeah, so now it's embedded. I can check this box and rerun it, and it will be popped out. I think there's just a couple other settings you have to mess with. I think I like pop out better for most cases, unless I'm specifically debugging something. I think there's one other thing you need to change to get this working. I think you need to go into display and window in the project settings and make sure that you are not in full screen or exclusive full screen, or I don't think you can control the window. That was the only other setting I had to change to get this working. All right, so JetBrains Rider update is available. All right. So if we want to work on code, there's a couple of things I would like to work on in service of the three big things that we talked about needing. One was like undo redo, two was like save and load, and three was like select and move. Kind of the thing that's bugging me the most is this whole, there's this enormous buildable area. That's what these tile maps didn't demarcate. So you'll see there's 8 of them. There's 8 of these box, or I don't know, there's 8 of these quad shapes, and they represent the 8 vertical layers that we support. And this is like the total buildable area that we support. And this right now is static, and it's kind of causing me some pain because since it's static, the issue is that if I build up here in this corner, so let's just build a basic room in this corner here. Doesn't really matter what about it, but let's put a door here so that we can tell, like, put a couple of doors so we can tell which side is which. If I do this and I'm like, oh, I want to look at the other side of this, I want to rotate this box. If I do that, uh-oh, where'd it go? Oh, it's over here. It's because it rotated the thing based on, and I'll do it again. Now it's down here. And so it's rotated 180 degrees, but it's about the origin of this entire area. I want a separate AABB that only encompasses the actual area built. And I want operations like rotation and things like that to only, like things like rotation, flood fill, all of that stuff. I only want to use the actual used AABB space. And what would be really great is if this maximum space just kind of moved with the composition so that you didn't actually have to, like, let's say I drew this and I was like, oh, this needs to be in the center. It can't be in the corner. Like, one solution to that would be drag move. So I can just like, or a select move. So I could select this whole thing with like a click drag and then move it over here back to the center. Or if there's nothing else built up anywhere, it could just treat this as the center. So there's a couple of different approaches to that, but what I think the first step is to have a kind of dynamic buildable area. Instead of having this static buildable area, have it be dynamic based around what you're actually building. So I kind of want to introduce something like that. That to me, I think would be a good first step to approach some of these other things. Because the other things are a little meatier. You know, undo, redo, save, load, select, move. I think this is actually an important precursor for select, move. So I kind of want to start looking at that. And I haven't touched the code in this game for a couple of weeks, so we're gonna reintroduce ourselves to it a little bit. All of our auto tiling and simulation and everything, basically everything that isn't just UI and rendering, all of that is happening in .NET. So we have this kind of separate simulation layer that kind of runs on its own threads and stuff, and kind of separate from the Godot runtime. And then if data needs to come in to Godot, like tilemap data, because the tilemap data, the auto tiler is updating the tilemap all the time, then we just send the data back. We just pin it and send a reference back to the Godot side, and then it can look at that memory. Because we are crossing the managed unmanaged barrier a lot. We're going from one domain to another, so we have to be careful about what we send across. So I'm wondering, the first thing I'm thinking about is like, how do we want to approach this AABB that represents the actually used area of the construction of like the ship that we're building versus the maximum area. So I would introduce that probably in the tool system. The tool system is what lets us modify things here. It lets us add and remove blocks. So we basically have a few different concepts for our tile map editor tool. We have blocks and we have tiles, and they're different. So like a block is this thing on my mouse, like this floor block. This is a floor block. It consists of 3 tiles. It has an X face, a Y face, and a Z face, basically corresponding to its right face, its left face, and its top face. This also has, this is a wall piece. This also is 1 block, but has 3 separate faces. So when we lay these out, we're laying out blocks, and then the auto tiler is looking at those blocks and being like, how should we render these blocks? What set of tiles do we need to render these blocks? And then there's also a cutaway tool that factors into that. We want to be able to show, like when we're cutting away part of a wall, we want to still be able to show that the wall is there. That's why we use this darker color. So we're laying out the blocks, and then the auto tiler is determining the best way to render those for a number of factors, for like camera, takes into consideration the view. Oh, I can't place a door here. So yeah, that's kind of how that works. So what we want to do is we want to make this guide. I think a good first step might be making this guideline thing dynamic. So this dotted line thing kind of stretches out to encompass the construction. So if I built a thing here and then I built a thing here, and I connected it or whatever, then we'd have a dotted line that runs around the whole construction here. And when I ask it to rotate the composition, it rotates the whole thing around the origin of whatever the actual composition is. I think that's cool. I might be going a little too hard in that because like this is a tool just for me right now. And I could always just be better about drawing things in the middle. But I think having this kind of elastic bounding area that kind of knows what we built, I think is super important, because when we're done building the thing, we're going to want to save it out, and we're not going to want to save out this whole, we're going to want to save out something more dynamic. We're not going to want to save empty space. Even if we can support up to this amount of volume, we don't want to just keep a bunch of empty. We're already seeing the consequences of that now, in that we're paying a lot for the flood fill algorithm, because the flood fill algorithm is just taking ages. Like here, let me hollow this space out and we'll see how long it takes the flood fill algorithm to actually stabilize. And I think it's probably the best argument. Oh, that's not going to work because this area is not sealed. Got to put a ceiling in here. Now that I've sealed this area, now we can kind of sit here and wait for the auto tile or wait for the flood fill thing to get it together. It'll take like 30 seconds. Yep, there we go. Yeah, so it's just taking ages because it's going through this enormous 64 by 64 by 8 volume, when it could just be searching only the area actually being used, and it would be much quicker. I have some optimizations in mind for the flood fill. I'm hearing good things about jump flood, which would be a GPU approach to flood fill, which I'm kind of tempted to try because we're going to be flood filling a lot of things. Or we're going to be flood filling the ship all the time because we need to know about oxygen flow. We need to know about fire propagation. We know about how power is moving through the ship. I feel like we have a lot of use cases that would be good for jump flooding. But right now, we just are using the most naive possible flood fill algorithm. Like incredibly simple, incredibly naive. I actually need to add diagonals to it. Right now, it's just checking adjacent. And it's not checking diagonally adjacent stuff. And that's a problem. So we need to add that. But that will be even more expensive because now we're searching. Then we'd be searching instead of searching 6 neighbors, we'd be searching 10 neighbors or whatever. Actually, even more than that, huh? Be 6 plus 8, be 14 neighbors. Yeah, we need to optimize before we can do that. So where would we keep track of this AABB that we're talking about? So we define an axis aligned bounding box. Each time we get a command replacing a block, and that axis aligned bounding box represents space between the initial coordinate, like when you click down. So if you click and drag a box, we're forming an AABB that's the shape of that box. That's good, but we also need an AABB that is the shape of the construction. Maybe we should be doing that. I guess we could be looking at the AABB of the selection, like when we're placing blocks, and we could compare that to the one that we have for the overall, like what's being used in the construction. And then we can expand or contract it. But then we need to be able to send that information along to the next step in the program, which is the tile system, which is the auto tiling system. And we need to send it along to the flood fill system. So it sounds like what we're actually going to be doing is we're going to be modifying the AABB associated with the block itself, the block buffer itself. Right now, a block buffer consists of an axis aligned bounding box and a statically allocated memory buffer that it can use for like all of the data that would exist within this AABB. So I guess the first thing we would need to do is be able to support dynamic allocation. So we need to be able to increase, reduce the allocation, and transfer the data to that new shape. That's kind of the stickier part of this. Still needs work, subscribed. Thank you so much, Still Needs Work. Thank you for beaming up. How are you doing? Really appreciate that. You're good, just doing classes? Nice. I'm doing better. I'm doing better now. I mean, you're probably aware we took the last week off streaming, and it was good. But we're back. We're back for like a partial week this week. We'll do a full week next week. And then the week after that is GDC, which is exciting and scary and terrifying and good. And I'm not really trying to have anything to show at GDC, except maybe I'll show some people my little tilemap editor tool. So I'm like not stressing about it, but it is going to be a pretty big what are all these csproject.old files? Can I get rid of these? Yeah, whatever. We probably need these for backups or something. Just like looking over here and I'm seeing these and I'm like, what are these? I feel like I would like to have these in the solution file, please. But whatever. Rather than being out here. All right, so let's look at what would be involved with changing the block buffers. So the block buffer has a buffer ID. Buffer ID points to a buffer stored in the world. Oops. The buffer stored in the world is here. So we've got a list of buffer IDs, and then we've got a buffer ID map. And then here's the actual... These are the memory owners. So we have a link to the memory owners here. There's a buffer memory map. So we have buffer IDs. We can map the IDs. And that provides us kind of the sparse dense mapping from buffer IDs to actual buffer memories. Connor McChicken Jr., thank you for the follow. Really appreciate that. Still needs work. Thank you for the hydrate. Should be remembering to do that. All right, so when we create a buffer, when we add a buffer, we get the next buffer ID, which either recycles or generates a new ID. We add to the memory map this buffer ID, a memory owner, which we allocate. So here's the trick. So we allocate the value.length times the component.types.size. Okay. So let me look at the one place we're actually doing this in the test system. So we add a buffer component. We pass in an entity. We pass in the flag for the block buffer. And we pass in a new block buffer. Why do we have to pass in the game board? Oh, the game board is an AABB. Okay. So we're passing in a block buffer with the whole game board. That's what we're doing. Interesting, interesting. And that's what this large area is. This is like the full size of the game board as it is now, because right now the game board can just hold one ship construction. It's not complicated enough to where we need to worry about adding ships next to each other and stuff like that yet, but we'll be getting there probably sooner than later. Hey, Connor McChicken, how are you doing? Bart Lane redeemed the stretch. Thank you, Bart Lane. Let me move in here. Oh, for anyone who's been paying attention, we were having these crazy graphical issues a while ago, for a long time actually, and it was totally an NVIDIA Vulkan bug. Spent so long thinking that it was a problem that I had, and it turned out to just be a crazy bug. Let me see if I can get the stuff for it. See if I have that here. But yeah, this is a bug that's been in place right now that they didn't fix until graphics driver version 572.60. It caused these insane, you can see these crazy weird little pixel offsets, these crazy render bugs. And it's doing this to just the basic built-in, like you can recreate this problem with an empty project and just the built-in Godot icon. Wild. Amazing that NVIDIA put out multiple graphics drivers that just broke Vulkan in this subtle way. But yeah, for anyone curious about what that was plaguing us for so long, this is what it is, and hopefully it's fixed now. Connor, you just came back from work. Nice. Yeah, I'm kind of in between my work shifts. I kind of do my day job in the morning. I do streaming and game dev here for a few hours, and then I go back to my day job. So I'm chilling right now. I'm kind of in the middle of my day. But I hope you have a relaxing evening here. You just came back from work. Still needs work. NVIDIA's new cards, I guess, are pretty disappointing. Yeah, I don't know. I try not to read too much about that. I couldn't afford to upgrade to one even if I wanted to. We've got a 4080 Super, which I'm pretty pleased with for pretty much everything right now. I've been playing Avowed and the Indiana Jones game, and those both look incredible. But yeah, I don't know. What about those new cards? All right, so what we would need would be a way of... So I don't think I actually want to do this now, like this. I think I would only want to... I think I would want to wait until we were done constructing an entity. Excuse me. Before we reallocate its buffer. Like, I wouldn't want to just be reallocating its buffer all the time just because we made an edit. Like, while we're in the construction menu. I think I want to wait until that's done. But that means we need to send an AABB to constrain any lookup into this system based on the actual used area. So I think what we should start with is just a way of tracking the used area. But the problem is we need to do this in such a way that we can pass it around, that like multiple systems could be aware of and using this. It's a little tricky. I basically need to put it in the entity itself so that when the entity gets passed around, we can keep track of that. Or I need to pass it around different way. Actually, not one card does that. You guess there were a few in the 5000 series that were doing that. Oh, you're talking about the cards burning up. Yeah, that's crazy. Connor, you work in night shifts, digital forensics. Oh, okay, night shift. So you kind of are in the opposite world as a lot of us, right? You're coming home as people are leaving. Is it like a full-on graveyard shift, or are you more of like a swing shifter kind of person? Either way, that sounds wild. I think that'd be a really interesting time to be working. Yeah, basically. Okay. Yeah, you're like on the opposite schedule as like most people. That's kind of cool. I don't really like people, so I think I'd be okay in that. I think I would struggle with maybe the lack of sunlight. But no, I guess you have a lot of sunlight if you're done with work and it's daytime. But you probably sleep during the day a lot. 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that'd be a really interesting time to work. All right, so what we're trying to do, we pass around the block buffer. So what I think we actually need to do is just add this to the block buffer, add this piece of information as like a temporary thing. Could we do that though? Could we maybe have like, Trying to think of a way to do this where we provide a different AABB of the used area versus the max area. I'm trying to think of doing it in a way where we don't have to reallocate the data, the underlying data, which isn't that bad if we had to do that, but we'd be rebasing everything all the time because we need to get everything into and out of whatever the local. We're operating all the time on these like 3-dimensional. They're basically packed like 3D arrays, right? They're like 3D spaces that we've compressed down into a 1-dimensional array. And so if I were to reallocate that all the time, I'd need to be basically rearranging the data all the time. I don't want to do that. So I need to keep track of this. Actually, maybe there's an argument for the block buffer to actually have multiple axis aligned bounding boxes, where it has like a max extent and it has like a used extent. So think about this case. Think about the case of like a Klingon bird of prey or whatever, right? Because like a Klingon bird of prey has these wings. This is like a super obscure reference. Let me see if I can help myself out here. You look at like a Klingon bird of prey. It has different arrangements, like here. So it's got its wings down, angled down when it goes into like attack. And then if it's like flying or landing, it angles its wings up. And that's just an example of like, here's a ship whose silhouette transforms. And like, I'm thinking about stuff like that. Like, what if a ship's like nacelles move out when it's like about to jump? Or like, what if the ship itself is like turning or transforming in a way? You wouldn't want to reallocate the array that stores that construction all the time just because it's changing its shape. You'd want to have some idea of what like the maximum extents of that shape, the ship is. And then if it's, you know, retracting wings or whatever, or like doing something else, like, then you can have a used, quote unquote, used AABB. And you can use that as a way of indexing into the data. Yeah, you could have a min and a max AABB, basically. Like, here's the maximum. It's not really min and max. It's more like used and max. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think that's a great example I gave, but like, you know, like there's fighter jets that do that too, right? Like they retract their wings in when they're in a certain flight mode and they put them back out. I think ships could have something like that a lot, which would look cool. Where like maybe like when you go into combat, you like tuck some of your more fragile systems in or something like that. I don't know. I don't even know if I'll be able to support that as a thing, but I think it would be pretty cool. And that would be a good excuse to have multiple axis aligned bounding boxes associated with each spatial thing. How big is a block buffer anyway right now? It's the size of an AABB. How big is an AABB? It's an AABB plus a buffer ID, and a buffer ID is just 2 ints, an index and a version. So it's 2 ints plus an AABB. An AABB is 2 vector 3s. 2 vector 3 I's. That's 6 ints plus 2 more. So it's 8 ints. That's like the size of an AABB. Or not an AAB, a block buffer. So I could be taking it from 8 ints Ints are 32 bits. That's not huge. It's not small, though. Adding a whole extra AABB to the block buffer. I guess it doesn't really matter. It should be fine. These are all components. These are all struct components. So I'm like, and we pack them, and since they're components, they're being stored compactly in like an entity component system that I have. So I'm always thinking about how small I can make the components. I just don't love the idea of having two different AABBs on every block buffer if we didn't need them. What we could do is we could actually we could just have two different block buffers associated with the entity. And I actually don't think that's something I can do. I actually don't think I have a system in place where I can have multiples of the same component on one entity. I picked this task because I thought it would be one of the easier, more straightforward ones, but I think it's going to end up being one of the harder ones. You know, you're only ever going to be working on one thing in the editor, in the construction editor, and this is a construction editor specific problem. So maybe that's how we approach this. Maybe we approach this as a special case and we pass this data around somewhere else, some other way. So could we pass it through either the input or the output objects? So we're already doing that once here. We have this AABB we're storing called the change bounds. What even is this? Okay, so here's an AABB we're passing between multiple systems. Maybe we need something like this. Have something like a used bounds or in use. Something like that. I think that would be okay for now. What even is this and what do we use it for? Update tilemap changes. Oh, so this is an AABB we pass around. Back when we were trying to update only the changes that the tilemap made, rather than fully updating the entire tilemap. Yeah, so we had update tilemap data changes versus update tilemap data entirely. Right now, we're just updating the whole data entirely because it's a lot more straightforward to just regenerate the tile data based on the block data. And that's what we're doing currently. And so the places that would care about a more limited used boundary would be the tile system because of a camera rotation. Where do we do the camera rotation stuff? This view object. That has the angle. Who references this? Okay, so an AABB. Okay, so when we are switching from a relative view to an absolute view, this is how we handle our camera rotations. So relative view gives us the position of the vector in the space relative to the camera, whereas absolute view does the opposite. It moves it out of the camera relative space back into the actual game space, regardless of what the camera angle is. This is how we support the 4 camera views that we have. is just by, when we're auto tiling, we just move things from game space into relative space. So like, we have this, and right now, because we just started, game space and view space are the same. Put a door here so that we can see what we're doing. And then if I rotate, 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 so now we're reprojecting in views based on the camera view. And that's how we support 4 camera angles without having to, you know, draw all of them simultaneously. We're only drawing the camera angle that we actually currently need. Oh, this is not correct. This should not be this color. The auto tiler is behaving incorrectly for the case of it's next to a door. That I gotta fix that. I'm not gonna fix that now probably, but gotta fix it. Looks like our music died. That's a shame. Let me see if I can bring it back to life here. All right, there we go. How's everyone doing today? How's your week been? What kind of projects are you working on, etc.? If everyone's just chilling, that's cool too. No need to respond. If anyone wants to share, I'd love to hear what kind of stuff you're working on. All right, so this uses the center. So the center is for the AABB. So we really just need, this AABB, this intermediary bounding box. That's the used bounds that are actually, you know, that fit the construction. We need to use that when we're rotating, and we need to use that when we're flood filling. And that's it. And that's where the gains will be. So we probably just keep track of this and reference it while we're in edit mode. Within a second says good. A dinosaur finished the goldfish in your pond this morning. Check my Discord in 30 seconds. Okay, I will check. Because I am struggling to understand how that could occur. Oh my god, you weren't kidding. So here's like your fountain thing. Oh god, this picture is huge. And these are the dinosaur tracks, huh? Sorry for the flashbang, everyone. Oh my god, these are dinosaur tracks. So in the snowy night, a dinosaur came by and ate your goldfish. That's what you're telling me? That's crazy. Pretty funny though. Wow. All right, so what we want to do is we want to construct an AABB. So what we can do is we can kind of use the changed bounds that we were using. Where are other references to these changed bounds? Okay, we have a bunch of references in the tool system. So that's actually probably close to what we're actually going to use here. Game.input.changed bounds is new AABB vector3i.min prior coords prior coords. Okay, so this is an AABB we're tracking that is just the area between where we clicked this time and where we had clicked last time. So that's kind of what we want, except we want a version of this that instead of it just is, it expands or contracts the AABB to fit it. So it's kind of additive. Actually, for placement, actually it's a little more complicated than that, isn't it? It can't just be because our AABB, we could be erasing. We could be doing an erasure. I guess we can just check whether the block eraser mode is on, and if it is, we're being subtractive, and if it's off, we're being additive. Let's try that and see if that works for us. So I'm just going to declare an AABB here. I'm going to call it used bounds. Oh yeah, you're saying last night set the mood for monsters in the woods. Yeah, you sent me a picture of that. That was the picture of your backyard at night. Pretty wild. I don't know why I can't zoom out when I open it this way. I'm gonna do this. I feel confident that this isn't a problem. This is cool. That's pretty wild that this is what your backyard looked like last night. And you said you just wandered around. Bryson, what kind of bird was it? It was clearly a dinosaur. Oh yeah, that is the same place, huh? Because there's this like, I recognize some of the features. That's pretty wild. What is the light source back there? It's so creepy. This is really cool though. Yeah, I would not wander around in that. The blue heron. A blue heron. That's the bird, Ryson. That's what's eating his goldfish. All right, so we're defining this boundary. This bounding box. This is going to be the bounding box of what's actually being used by the construction. By the ship construction we're doing. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to... Did I add? I might have. Let me see if I've added the tools I need. I feel like I added an expand function. So we have expand. And that just increases the... That just increases it. I need like a contract though. Contract is going to be a lot harder. I don't think I can support contract yet because there's a lot of crazy things that could happen. Like keeping track of this is going to be a little tricky. Like, what if we expand this and then we turn the eraser on and we reduce it like this? That actually hasn't changed the in-use boundary. Because it's a bounding box. That actually doesn't change it at all. I have to think about that. We could probably easily make it expand, but it's going to be harder to get it to correct. Get the AABB scaling correctly. We could get the non-overlapping vectors. And then we could just iterate through them and make an AABB out of the largest and smallest vectors that we get back. That could work, because then yeah, that could totally work. I don't want to get it back as an AABB though, not as a list of vector 3i's. And it only gives us the non-overlapping of one of the AABBs. So it gives us the vectors that don't overlap this other AABB, but it gives us the vectors from the AABB we call this on. Okay, that don't overlap with some other AABB. Okay, that's fair. So we could use that to tell whether we should, whether we can contract an AABB or not. Like if we're carving out these concave shapes within the construction. Otherwise, it's like, I think it's a little trickier. But we could write that code. We could try to write that right now. Try to write a thing that reduces the AABB if it can. I don't even know what I would call that. It would be called like carve out or something like that. Or it would be like, it would be contract, but it takes an AABB and it would only really work. Yeah, I don't see another way of handling that, handling these kind of overlapping, these two overlapping bounding boxes, except to do it iteratively like this, using like get non-overlapping. That's kind of how I see the clearest way to do that. It's going to be kind of involved is the problem, though. But this is an edit time function, so it's probably fine. I mean, at least for now it is. So let's put a pin in this, and what we actually want to do is we want to give ourselves some visual feedback first thing. So what we want to do is we want to, so we have this. These are like our static levels. These like represent the actual boundaries. I want a copy of this. I want to make a copy of this, but I want it to be, you see, I don't want it to be, I guess it can start like this. That's fine. I basically want to redraw this all the time. Like I want to bring the lines in and expand them out. as the construction grows or shrinks. I want that visual feedback on what I'm doing, like ASAP. I know that's like unnecessary, but it's like, it helps me a lot. So instead of static levels, we're gonna call these moving levels. I guess I could call them dynamic. I don't know. I want to call them moving. Or elastic, maybe? I'm gonna call them elastic levels. I'm gonna move it up like that. And so we're gonna redraw these tile maps, the elastic level tile maps, based on the actual size of the ship that we're constructing. And we're going to do that. So this is interesting. Now we're actually going to take our packing and unpacking tile map data function. So unpack tile map data. This actually needs to be like, we need to include information about who this data is for. And that's an interesting question. Because right now we're just sending one big thing of tile map data, but now we need to actually send multiples. Actually, that's not really true. We could do it a little differently. We could keep that line data in the same tile map as the ship, but I would like it to be on separate levels, actually. So this is the grid levels script. And this is the tile levels script. Oh, so these are just different scripts that share the same thing here. So how are we going to do that? Sorry if this feels a little scatterbrained. I haven't looked at this code in a couple of weeks, so we're kind of just reorienting ourselves here. Kind of the consequence of working on art and taking a break and all this other stuff. We're kind of refamiliarizing ourselves with where we left off in the code. That's probably what a lot of this week is going to be. Just refamiliarization. Because it's kind of amazing how different your experience is when you're writing code, when that code is like in your memory, when it's like in your working memory. It's a very different experience than when you're trying to get it back in there. So the thing we want to pay attention to is this output. So output.tiles. While output.tiles.count is greater than 0, we dequeue the tiles and we call unpack tile map data. So what we need to do is we actually need to know which. So right now we just have the editor levels, but we actually have more than that. We have more than just editor levels. We also now have these elastic levels that we want to update. This is actually a really great test because we actually need to figure out how we're going to be updating multiple tile maps for multiple different ships. So we need to include an identifier. This probably shouldn't be just a queue anymore. Or I guess if it is a queue, it needs to store an object that's a little more complicated. Because right now, it's just a queue here in the output. The queue of byte arrays. Okay, so it needs to be a slightly more complicated object than that. It needs to be like byte arrays and like some kind of ID that the Godot will know. The question is, does this system need to be, does this reference need to be like consistent, from like run to run, or can it be something we can figure out? Can it be some reference that, can it be like basically the node identifier or something like that? Can it be something that like potentially changes run to run? Or does it need to be something more constant? Something that's like consistent when you save it to disk and load it back. A bit of a question about that. I think it can just be a reference to an instance. I think that's fine for now. And in fact, we can pretty much hard code it right now, probably. We still need some kind of reference here. Whether it's just like an index into an array, and we just fill an array with like nodes. That depends on order of the nodes, which I don't love. I mean, right now we can presume a lot because we're in a very safe and unchanging environment. So we've got this levels thing. What we need to do is we need to scrutinize this a little more closely than that. So we need to be able to get more than one of these. This is a class, so we could potentially just... we can't really reference this easily. How do I want to do that? The game script here is kind of our gateway between the Godot stuff and our own like .NET stuff. Kind of the only, it's intended to be the only one who's really talking to and handing stuff back and forth. It's kind of our doorway between the managed and the unmanaged world. Why here is where we are doing things like processing our output, like transferring tilemap data. We just need to pick, we just need a structure, a data structure that lets us pick what node we're calling into. Like we just need that information encoded into this. And in fact, this additional target that I'm talking about here, this is specific to the editor. This is specific to when you're in level editing mode. So actually, we don't necessarily need a separate identifier. What we could do when we're in like a normal use case is we should probably have the reference to the node, the corresponding node. We should probably put that in the entity that represents that ship, that represents like that node, that like construction. So right now we just have the one test one, and it's just this entity ID 00. So it's just this entity. So we could just mock up an identifier for it. The easiest, well, not the easiest, the most straightforward thing to do would be to just add these lines, these like little line objects. If we add them to the regular tile map, the regular ship haul. If we just add that to it, that's the easiest thing to do, but that's not how I want to do this. I want to add it as a separate thing. So I think we do need to hard code this to an extent. Actually, rather than having the test system add this entity, we could have the game board or the game itself, the game node add it, and then we would be able to include a reference to the node that it belongs to. We could do that. That would be a way to send this data over separately. Let's try that. Let's try that. So we have levels, which is board.getNode levels. Let's actually change this. Let's say this is levels. And then let's add a few more. So let's say private node editor. And then let's say private node elastic. And we'll just store these nodes separately. So editor is levels.getNode editor. Yep. Or editor, it's called editor levels. And then elastic can be, yep, there you go. Then we could do this separately. And then what we want, well, here's the trick. Now I'm running into a complication by my desire to use multiple separate tile maps to display one ship's tile map data. Some of it's incidental. It's like we're trying to fuse this game grid onto the data here. And there's a strong argument for making it separate because we want the we want to kind of use our own we want to be able to do some modulation stuff. So right now, for example, oh, everything's going to break. I forgot. Yeah, everything's going to be breaking. But this grid line thing, which is what we're trying to move, this modulates as you like move away from it. So you can't see all of it. Like it's supposed to hide. It's actually not completely working, I think, because I partly broke something. Yeah. I renamed a bunch of stuff without actually changing it anywhere. So levels, it's not levels.call. Now it's editor.call. I don't think there's any other references to this. Okay, no, here it is. Wait, why is this a separate task? Oh, I tried to make this its own task. That's interesting. That didn't work, right? Forgot about that. We were trying to like make this stuff less linear, or make it so that you weren't waiting on this. You weren't waiting on the tile unpacking. I'm basically trying to get as much offloaded onto tasks as possible on separate threads, so that we have as few blockers as we need. Okay, I understand the argument for why it's annoying, how it's annoying that like your files, your folders are just choked out with UIDs. Because yeah, that's my experience now. We got UIDs everywhere. I get it. I get the annoyance. You just got UID files everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. I wonder why I didn't actually do this. Because the way this task was supposed to work is we get the byte array, we call unpack tilemap data, and then we await the signal. That's the editor completing this. And that doesn't work because well, what is this? How does this help us? We don't move on. I don't know. In VS Code, you can hide certain extensions from the file tree. Yeah, I might look at doing that, Bryson. That's a good idea. Let's see if we can do that. Customize tree views. I don't know why I can't interact with any of this. Oh, I can. Okay, so this isn't where I could do it if I could do it. If I could do it. I'm going to look into that because that would be nice. I don't see an obvious way to do it, but I'm sure there is. Dustin, yay, you got your main scene cleaned up with the pop-up notice into its own scene and the battle sequence into its own scene. Files all organized into matching folders, much cleaner. Nice. Yeah, I love doing that. I love the way you can kind of nest stuff like that. You don't have to see it all the time. That gets crazy after a while. That sounds great. Hey, Fusionist, how's it going? Where'd our music go? Our music's taking a minute. How's it going? There was another approach I was thinking about for parallel tilemap unpacking, and I think we could do it, but we'd be using the Godot threads pool. I'm a little concerned about having like C# thread pools and Godot thread pools going at the same time, but it's probably fine. Probably fine. Because right now we're sending big packed tilemap data and we're unpacking it all on the main thread. So I think it would be good if we could get it off of the main thread, because if we could, or if we can't get it off on the main thread, send it to a system that does it using multiple cores. Get the thread pool to just assign a thread to like each level or something like that. I don't know. Like split this eye, or I guess we'd want an outer loop, because this is just the inner loop of the layer. We'd want like go one up and then go by level, and then within each level go by layer, probably. I don't know. Yeah, I'm doing better, Fusionist. We're kind of getting back into things here a little slowly, but I think we'll be good. I think we'll be back to our old tricks again soon. So yeah, so like this we want to put this on a separate layer because of this modulation thing that's supposed to happen. It's actually weird that it's not doing it. Oh, it's not doing it fully because of this thing. If I hide that, will it work correctly? Dustin, the battle UI scene content is still going to get big. Probably break it down into sub-scenes. Yeah, probably. Getting all your scenes down to less than 10 scripts will help your sanity. Yeah, I hope so. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so we're hiding. So this is why I want to put these boundary lines on a different layer or on a different tile map, is so that we can do this modulation stuff. So we can, you only have to look at the ones close to the layer that you're actually operating on. Whereas if I just added these to the same layer as like these objects, as like the actual drawn objects, then they would be affected by like the separate cutaway system that we use. That's not ideal. And we wouldn't be able to modulate the whole layer. We'd have to modulate by cell, which was giving us weird problems when we used to do it. So I kind of don't want to do it. So yeah, so I think these boundary lines need to be on their own layer. I feel like I'm distracting myself from the real work by talking about like having these elastic boundary markers and stuff. Like I could just be good and build things in the middle and not worry about this. What layer is this even on? Oh, this one. It's a little hard to tell the layer differences sometimes. I need to fix that too. Maybe we add some like atmospheric perspective or something. I don't know. Thanks, Ryson. Sorry, I'm thinking about how I want to approach. I mean, because a regular case of like a ship that you load in isn't going to have these elastic boundary marker things. So this is like very specific to the constructor. So I'm just thinking about the best way for the constructor tool. This is like editor tool specific. And so I'm trying to decide how far out of my way I want to go with this. I think what we do is we make a separate boundary entity that is these elastic boundary things. And then we just have that entity hard-coded. I understand why people who are making a game who have these ECS systems reserve some entity numbers. I don't think that's the best way to do it. The best way to do it would be to just have a composition that's unique, I guess. But I think that's what we'll do for now. So what we want to do is we want to separate the test system. We want to move this over out of the test system. So the test system is going to kind of become dormant right now. So we can actually stop running the test system. Let's look at the main system. The main system would call ready on the test system. We can just not do this because we don't. Test system doesn't do anything right now. And what we can do is we can have the game. Does the main system need to run before we start creating entities? I don't think so. No, it does not. So we can just create these entities. Here we're going to reserve entity ID 00. for the world's so-called construction entity. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make another one. Does this need to be the full block buffer thing? I guess it does. We're going to make another entity, and this entity is going to be our elastic grid thing. Yeah, so we'll just make another one of these. Now we're going to reserve 1, 0. This isn't the construction entity. I'm going to call this like the construction yard. This is like the actual space where you're doing the building thing, and this is like a grid. I don't know. They're a little different. There's like the actual space that you're using for the construction, and then there's just going to be this grid that's going to be like the boundaries around it. And we're going to make that distinction. Although this is going to just get processed the same way, isn't it? This is a little weird. This might not work correctly for our use case. So we get component, block buffer. Oh, we actually are saving. I see. I see what we've got here. We've got this saved somewhere. We've actually got this saved. We've actually got this hard-coded. This construction entity is hard-coded. It's an entity ID. And so we could just hard-code another value here for the other one. That's like a stupid way to do like singletons with the ECS. But it's okay because it's just like a temporary solution for our current use case, which is the case of like only doing shipbuilding, nothing else. Come on, Pretzel. Pretzel's having some loading issues. Okay. I think I see what we're going to be doing. Probably going to wrap up the stream soon because I'm still kind of just getting back in the swing of things here, and I still need to go do laundry and stuff before my second shift starts. Second work shift. So I think we're going to wrap it up here. Tomorrow we're going to pick this up. I really just want this like game grid or this build grid thing, this elastic build grid feature. I feel like I am distracting myself from the real work, which is like undo, redo, save load, select move, stuff like that. But I really want this feature because it's going to kind of be our guiding light to eventually reducing, because eventually we are going to want to reduce the when we're doing the saving and loading. This feels like it's a prelude to a number of different systems. Like it's a prerequisite to have some of these other things, so I want to work on them. We have enough people in the channel here to warrant a raid. Where are we gonna go? Got Tobugi. Are they still streaming? Got IRAD. IRAD is working on this incredible tower defense game. Ryson, you think I need to push toward a vertical slice of your actual game? Yeah, I agree, Ryson. That's the goal for the year, definitely. But have like a single ship-on-ship combat or whatever, like that vertical slice. But to do it, we need to actually make the ships. We need to actually be able to build the thing. And so, yeah, we're still working on tools, and we're arguably spending too much time on it. All right, we're gonna rate it out here. I really appreciate everyone hanging out today. I appreciate Sorcery Story for the raid. Appreciate everyone jumping back in, even though I've been gone for quite a long time here. I'm gonna snooze this ad. We won't get stuck in an ad while we're raiding out here. I am gonna I'm gonna attempt to put on our outro music. But no, I don't disagree with you, Ryson. We definitely need to push towards actually having a vertical slice of the game. There's just so many systems that need to be built. Like once we're done with this tilemap editor, then we need to start looking at pathfinding and things like a system for moving things about, like characters, moving them around. We're just building this very sequentially. We're just kind of taking our time doing the next thing, and it's a little rough, but I'm hoping in the long run it'll be good. What I'm trying to avoid is, yeah, we could rush towards making a vertical slice that we hack together. That's going to be a nightmare to change because, you know, we didn't do anything right. We didn't do anything systematically. We kind of just hacked it together. I'm trying to avoid that, but it is slow, and it does make me nervous and uncomfortable how slow it is. But again, thank you all for hanging out. Really appreciate you spending your day here with me. We'll be back tomorrow, I swear. And we're going to go check out IRAD's tower defense game. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Maximum warp.